What is going on, everybody? What is going on? The Catch Fam, my name is John Dawson, and in today's video, we are hopping into running backs who have very favorable strength of schedules for the 2022 fantasy football playoffs. These are running backs who you may be able to target overall in trades before the trade deadline, or running backs that you are simply just going to want to keep on your roster because their matchups overall in weeks 15 through 17 are going to give you a huge benefit throughout the fantasy playoffs. So if you guys do enjoy today's content, be sure to hit that like button on the way in. Hit that subscribe button, of course, if you are new to the channel. It really does help us out when you guys hit that like and consider subscribing. And please feel free to drop any comments, questions, concerns pertaining to the 2022 fantasy football season down below. I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Keep in mind during today's video that while at the moment these overall schedules are very favorable, any of these defenses could step up by the time the fantasy playoffs come around. I am recording this going into week 10 of the 2022 fantasy football season, so things can change. Just keep that in mind. But at the time I'm recording this, these are going to be the running backs with some of the most favorable matchups as we approach the playoffs. All right, first up on the list, we've got the New York Jets running backs, both Michael Carter and James Robinson, who are very easily attainable in trades at the moment, are definitely worth a look as we approach the playoffs. Week 1, they get the Detroit Lions, the 8th best team to face from the position. The Jacksonville Jaguars in week 16, the 9th best team, and in week 17, they get the Seattle Seahawks, the 10th best team. So yeah, there's a little bit of a question here as the season continues to roll. Who's going to be getting more touches overall, Michael Carter or James Robinson? Is definitely hard to say, but I do think that both running backs are worth rostering, even if they're on your bench, even if you're not starting them at the moment. This playoff schedule is absolutely ridiculous, and we know one thing for sure: the Jets are going to run the football a ton. That is the bread and butter of this football team at the moment. They are not throwing the ball a ton with Zach Wilson at the quarterback position. So we know at that point in the season, the Jets are going to be giving the rock to both of these running backs a ton, and they might be, hunting for particular playoff seeding. That's the other thing we want to look at. Even if we don't have beautiful matchups on paper, even if they are tough matchups, which it's not in this circumstance, are these teams going to be in a playoff push or fighting for specific playoff seeding? And the Jets at this point in the season are definitely going to be. So Michael Carter, James Robinson, 2 running backs to definitely look for in trade packages, or if you own them, make sure you hold on to them as we approach the playoffs. All right, next up, we've got King Henry himself. This one is just not even fair. I mean, if you own Derrick Henry, hold on to him, but believe it or not, I've gotten enough trade questions from you guys who are going out and targeting Derrick Henry that I think if you can do so, you definitely continue to do so. Yes, week 17, a bad matchup overall against the Dallas Cowboys, one of the best teams in the league against the running back position. But what do we just talk about? Teams who could potentially be fighting for playoff seeding. I mean, at the moment, the Tennessee Titans are still in the playoff mix, so this could be a crucial game overall. On top of that, the Dallas Cowboys are going to be in a competitive game script as well, so this should be a actually pretty good matchup for Derrick Henry because he is the heart and soul of the Tennessee Titans. But if we take away week 17 and week 15, he gets the Chargers, the 2nd best team to play against from the running back position at fantasy perspective. In week 16, he gets the Houston Texans, the best possible matchup. It's not even fair in weeks 15 and 16. I don't care who he's facing in week 17. If you own Derrick Henry, do not get rid of him. If you can try to find a way to trade for Derrick Henry, do so, because it might just end up winning you your league here in 2022. All right, next up on the list, we've got another player who you're hopefully just holding on to, and if you're not, you're going to have to pay a pretty penny for it before the trade deadline. But we got Christian McCaffrey. He'll face the Seattle Seahawks, the 10th best team for the position to go up against in week 15. And week 16, a little bit steeper against the Washington Commanders, but am I really afraid of that team? Not exactly. And in week 17, he gets the Las Vegas Raiders, the 4th best team to face from the running back position from a fantasy perspective. So overall, man, listen, the Niners, once again, a team who I think will be fighting for playoff seeding, or maybe even fighting to win this conference overall at the point in the season when we are in the fantasy playoffs. So I think Christian McCaffrey is due for a ton of volume, a ton of work overall. He's only going to continue to get better and better as the season goes on while he's with the San Francisco 49ers. And overall, this playoff schedule is extremely favorable. So obviously, if you own Christian McCaffrey, you probably weren't trading him unless you just got an offer that you can't refuse. If your team is absolutely loaded and you feel like you can let go of 2 or 3 players and you're already in a position to make a playoff push, man, you really might want to think about it, because there are some very good matchups overall in the playoffs for Christian McCaffrey. All right, next up, we've got Dameon Pierce. He'll face the Kansas City Chiefs, the 6th best team to go up against from the position. In week 16, he will get the Tennessee Titans, a very steep matchup here. I don't like this one at all, but even if you own Pierce, you're probably starting him in week 16 regardless. And then in week 17, he gets the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you know that game's going to be competitive, because even at the end of the season, these division rivals still like to battle it out. So yes, week 16 a little bit steep overall, but Dameon Pierce at the moment, as we approach week 10, coming off a not so great overall ceiling in week 9, might be a player who you could actually easily acquire. Maybe not easily, but definitely a player who's realistically in the trade realm, not exactly like Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey, right? So Pierce, definitely a player you can go out and seek to target, to add to your roster, and he has got a good schedule overall as we approach the playoffs. All right, next up, we've got the Lions running backs. 2 running backs that are definitely, I've gotten a ton of questions about in terms of trading for or being in your guys' trade packages. I actually think after looking at their playoff schedule, you should hold on to DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams for sure. If you guys have an opportunity to trade for them, you should definitely go and do so. Yes, week 15 is a steep matchup against the New York Jets, a team that is definitely running the ball first, like we talked about earlier in the video, and playing defense, and they are playing good defense. They're playing pretty well overall against the position. I don't quite think the Lions are going to be in, a position where they're really fighting for the playoffs, but you never know. I mean, outside the Vikings, that division is still kind of open, I guess. So I don't know how competitive this game will be in week 15, but let's take that off the list. Just look at week 16 and 17. Week 16, they get the Carolina Panthers, the 3rd best team to go up against from the running back position. And week 17, they get the Chicago Bears, the 7th best team to go up against from the running back position. Once again, these division games at the end of the year always seem to be a little bit competitive. So it might be a better idea to go out and target Jamal Williams, because I don't really know if DeAndre Swift is going to be around at this point in the season when we're in the playoffs. But overall, they are both worth taking a look at as we continue to inch closer and closer to the fantasy playoffs. All right, next up, we've got Najee Harris of the Pittsburgh Steelers, a player I have seen in trade discussions essentially since week 1 of the season. This is a player you can afford to trade for at a cheap cost overall, and I think he's absolutely worth it, even if you have a good squad overall. Just look at this playoff schedule. It's very favorable outside of the fantasy championship. In week 15, he gets the Carolina Panthers. We just talked about them, the 3rd best team to go up against from the running back position. In week 16, he gets the Raiders, the 4th best team to go up against from the running back position. Then a steep matchup in week 17 against the Baltimore Ravens. But once again, these end of season divisional games always get a little bit competitive. You always have these teams that want to knock the better team out of the playoffs, and you have the other side of things where the Baltimore Ravens in this example are trying to fight for better seeding overall, more than likely. So while I don't love that matchup on paper, the game script is there, and then weeks 15 and 16 are very good matchups. And on top of that, Najee Harris is a running back who a lot of fantasy managers are just trying to move on from and don't mind trading away. So I think that he is definitely a running back to target as we approach the playoffs. All right, last up on the list, I just want to talk about Travis Etienne, who overall doesn't have a great playoff schedule, right? In week 15, he gets the Dallas Cowboys. In week 16, he gets the New York Jets. Those are not favorable matchups by any means, but he's been a monster all season. His volume is only going up and up since James Robinson has not been on that team. So I guess he hasn't been a monster all season. He's been a monster since James Robinson departed that team, but you guys know what I'm saying. He has looked phenomenal since he's been the lead running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he gets the Houston Texans, the worst team in the league against the running back position from a fantasy perspective. In week 17, the week of the championship game for your respective league. More than likely, I know some of you guys play in week 18, but about 90% of you guys, 95% of you guys are playing your fantasy championships in week 17. That alone makes Travis Etienne a running back you want to target in your trades before the trade deadline. And on top of that, a running back you want to hold on to if you own. He could single-handedly win you your fantasy championship. And I do not see this Houston Texans defense improving against the run anytime soon. Travis Etienne, yes, it's tough in week 15 and week 16, but week 17 is just far too good of a matchup to ignore as the playoffs continue to be right around the corner. And that'll do it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy the content today, be sure to hit that like button on the way out. Hit that subscribe button, of course, if you are new to the channel. It really does help us out when you guys hit that like and consider subscribing. And please feel free to drop any comments, questions, concerns pertaining to the 2022 fantasy football season down below, regardless of when you were watching this video. Like I said, I'm releasing this going into week 10, but this will be pertinent information all the way up to week 17 of the season. So on top of that, make sure you guys keep in mind, depending on the date that you're watching this, some of these rankings may have changed and they'll continue to change. But overall, these are the top running backs I would hold on to or target as we approach the 2022 fantasy football playoffs. With that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.